Today, the topic is developing categories for analysis of interview data. And there is a specific focus on disassembling and reassembling. The different authors use different concepts to mean the same things, or they approach data analysis from different angles. And this, the other thing that I've noted is that you don't have a uniform way of analyzing data. You can analyze data in a way that someone recommends, such as one of the students or the scholars or the researchers. Authors have got a number of books that are written about analyzing data. So in one of the authors, I note that they say, although there are some guidelines, one can use her own or his own intuition, or you can just fabricate your own way of analyzing. What would be important is to make sense of the data that has been collected and eventually move to a stage where you analyze, interpret, and draw conclusions on the data. And that is with respect to the study focus and the research question that must be answered. If you are able to do that, no one would want to know how you have analyzed data. In some instances, there is a recommendation that the strategies or some of the procedure that you have followed in analyzing data, if you think it is important for the readers to see or to note, you can use that as an appendix, or you can use those as appendices. So I'm saying we can use different terminologies. We can approach it from different perspectives. But data analysis is data analysis. You were aware that today we would be dealing with data analysis, whether it is developing categories or whether it is compiling or disassembling or assembling. Those are the details that are in the pudding. But data analysis is data analysis. And you have heard from Thursday that we said it is a to and fro process. Remember, we speak of the reiterative process, and it was emphasized last week. And the recursiveness, building on previous work in order to move forward. That will help you. We'll even hear today that a strategy for data analysis might entail going backwards or going forward. Then you jump forward, today, yesterday, today, future. You see, all those things are how we will deal with the workshop today. So because you've been knowing today, I think you've also studied, you prepared for data analysis from your own perspective. And don't be shy to ask questions and make contributions, as you always do. We always indicate that what we have, the references that would appear here are just guidelines. And I will always emphasize the fact that one owns what the decisions that he or she makes. And whether you've got a preferred author or you want to mix authors, you want to downplay others, you then do it in accordance with your assumptions. You know, we've got worldviews. So everybody should be able to defend their choices depending on what their preferences are. And I always say that there is a time, if you are a PhD student, that you will have to defend orally. But if you're not a PhD student, even if you're a PhD student, writing clearly, legibly, in a way that you don't lose your students or your readers, you actually convince. And that is a way of defending. Even if you don't appear orally, your writing should convince, must not create question marks. That is what we always encourage. And you do so by being meticulous. Do study, study how other people present their reports and their findings. Study the empirical findings. People are very original. They write in their own understanding and in their own way. But what they do is to close loopholes rather, is to make sure that what they write would not be challenged because it is based on scientific facts. You have got your scientific approach because processes are presented in research methodology books, in other books that are discipline specifics. Theories would always be theories. History is history. There is a discourse in history, the manner in which they write and they communicate. Educations have got their own way of doing it. The legal students, the natural scientists, everyone has got that. Please try to master that. And I know that because you come from different colleges, you do have that strong background. But what do we do here today is to try and find a way in which that which you have, that background, how can you research it better? How can you frame it and eventually achieve? You can design the plan, the research plan, implement it, and eventually produce a research report that would be examined. Today's focus is on data analysis, as we've said, and we've got two principal areas. Is deassembling data and reassembling data. And under deassembling data, which would be the first one, we'll look at starting by looking backward, starting by looking forward, making analytic memos, coding data, needed decisions about coding. We'll decide. We'll look at how you make a decision, or we advise that you don't have to code if you don't want. You can analyze data in your way. We would make an example of developing a schematic diagram as a heuristic device. Then we also look at how you deassemble data when you are not coding them. The second theme on reassembling data has got looking for patterns, using arrays to help reassemble data, creating hierarchical arrays. We would also have an example of this, designing matrices as arrays. So that is what is going to guide us as we go through. If we don't finish and there's somebody who thinks that there's something burning, we can revisit it at a later stage, or we can prioritize it in the next workshop. I know that we did not finish Thursday's presentation. There was still a number of slides. And if you're still interested in us continuing on it, please indicate we can revisit. But otherwise, when we have consolidated and wrapped up all the workshops that we would have, we can decide to revisit some of the workshops. We're going to start with deassembling data. Assuming that you have now properly organized your data, you are ready to start the second phase in the 5-phase cycle, which calls for assembling your data in some manner. The previous workshop on Thursday looked at compiling the data, and we have heard that we can, this is just this what helps you to put data in an orderly manner so that it facilitates good data analysis. We have debated a lot, and we're talking about that. We did have discussions and questions. We engaged. Remember again that the phases can be recursive, which means that while you are in one phase, you may go backward and forward at the same time. Backward, by going backward, you return to alter something done in an earlier phase. And when you go forward, you preview or surfacing an idea for an upcoming phase. And I think this always becomes obvious. We noted that when we were in phase one, the compiling phase, somewhere it imaged that we touch things of the forthcoming phases, the phase of deassembling and assembling, and you can even move to the 5th phase, trying to note some aspects that might appear as conclusions or some that might appear as recommendations. This is mainly because the process is recursive. So you are not forced to stay in one stages. By the way, these stages are I don't know if or I should say they are arbitrary, but what happens is while you are in one stage, it does not mean that you are in that stage. No, it means that you are analyzing data in all 5 stages. And as the opportunity arises, you either address phase 1 or phase 2, phase 5, phase 3, phase 4. That is what happens because of the to and fro movement. And you see, analyzing does not confine you to what you are seeing, because you think more. And remember, because of the history, because of your legacy, and because of your worldview and experience that you have in the research project, or the experience that you bring with you, that is your worldview. That determines how you analyze data. So those are important aspects to consider. And every time when we talk, we cannot forget about the role of the researcher in data analysis, and the role of the researcher in data collection, and the role of the researcher in preparing a research report. Because you prepare a research report that you will be able to implement. And when you're preparing a report, you are making choices. Now, you have already made those choices, and you have already gone to the field, and you have implemented the research plan, which was based on your choice. So even when you're collecting data, it might be that you have your data was very imbued in that you have influenced data collection. Even if bias was not introduced, you did reflect that you should avoid introducing the element of bias. So your role is always important. So you go to and fro, to and fro. So that is what we should not forget uh, all the time. That is why I indicate in red here that I've experienced to and fro reference when dealing with most of the research topics or the workshops. And you remember last week I was saying uh, you only analyze data that you have collected. And if you've collected data, you've recorded it. Then you remember the workshop on recording data. You remember the workshop on developing a research proposal, those theoretical frameworks, the literature review, which some of the aspects are cross-cutting, so you cannot forget them. We will always make reference to them. And the reason why I talk like this is that you should feel free to do whether it is level 5 or 4 of data analysis. Don't be surprised if you get stalled at disassembling phase. Where to start is the most commonly voiced barrier. People always feel that it's difficult to start. And remember, we said your data might be too many pages, very long recordings that need more time for you to analyze. And you see some of it you have to transcribe. Then if you have just written it, if it is handwritten, or if it is already transcribed, you have to organize it, you have to compile it. So it's a lot of it. So when there is those many pages, where do you start? That is the question. And that is what a researcher must answer, or a student. If you need to overcome this barrier of not knowing where to start, think about two principles: looking backward and looking forward. If you don't know how to start, just skip the following. If you do know how to start, just skip the following two subsections. This is the author who wrote for me here, that if I'm a researcher and I know how to start, I must not read the text on starting by looking backward or looking forward. But I've decided that we need to deal with this because it gives us an opportunity to look at ourselves, to reflect if we need it or we don't need it. If we need it, then we will take the advice and the guidance. First, starting by looking back, as an empirical inquiry, your entire analysis aims at making clear connections between your data and your substantive research ideas. Substantive research ideas refers to what you already know, your perceptions, your assumptions, your background, your everything that has to do with the research that has played a role before you could even try to start with data analysis. While this principle sounds obvious, it is helpful. Its helpfulness is in suggesting that the relevant topics of dissembling might be directly related to the substantive interest where you started. And therefore, rather than remaining stalled by staring at your data, a worthwhile ice-breaking activity becomes a look back, and it is done in this manner. You review your research questions, whether they surfaced before or during your research. And I think I perceive that all researchers or students, when they've got research questions, every time in every step of their research journey or their research project journey, they will have at the back of their minds what they want to achieve, which is informed by the research questions or a research question. They want to answer a research question. And if your data analysis does not respond to a research question, then you're not going to answer a research question and there will be no alignment. And we have emphasized the need for alignment. So we are carrying that alignment in here, that when we don't know where to start, let us reflect backwards. And one of it is to look at, what was my research question? Did the data that I collect, did it touch a little bit of the research question? Was it out of context? Or what has happened with it? Because we want our data to actually be in line with the research question. You can also check your notes for potentially new ideas that have run around your head as you collected your data. You did have research questions, and you have done literature review, remember, colleagues? And literature review has guided you to formulate specific questions. And then you've got an interview guide, you've got a questionnaire, or a data collection instrument. That one was supported by your literature review and many more other resources that you explored earlier. Now, did something come out that was not part of the original thinking? It's not part of my substantive idea. It's a new thing that that surprises or that images. That is interesting also. Eh? And now, the third thing, you pursue new or existing research studies because you've done literature review. You noted that other people have actually studied things that are not related to what you are studying, which ensures that you contribute to the body of language. Or some people did study what you have studied, but they recommended that yourself must complete the course or a specific dimension because they identified a gap and they made recommendations for future studies. Then you based it on that one. That is how your previous literature review assists you. It is the other studies, your empirical studies, and the impact on what you do. So that we are hearing that it can be another way in which you can start. It can assist you in advising you where to start in analyzing data that you have compiled. You collected, you compiled, it was transcribed. These three activities should produce clues about where you need to start. If you are extremely lucky, you may even get a sense of the nature of the issues to be addressed by your ultimate study report. Because you have got objectives to achieve, eh? And those objectives, if you follow them, they assist you in responding to a research question. So they should point to the final destination. Your purpose statement should point to the ultimate destination, and it is based on your research question. A research question will ask you what you want to do. Then a purpose statement then answers, I want to do this, and this is what I want to see at the end of the study. That one should also be along the same lines as all the other three aspects. Now, we are hearing if you are matching on, you are streamlined with your earlier, your earlier understanding, your purpose statement, your research questions, then the likelihood is it's pointing to you how the final research report should look like. But another way of doing it is to look forward, not only looking backwards. But I would think if it was me, I would look forward and backwards. I would do the two. so that I can benefit from all of it. Then I look where the potential is for maximizing, and I do that. I exploit that one. Second, informally sketching your intentions as to how you plan to go about the deassembling process also can be helpful. So it means I must then indicate what I want, then project, then decide, make pointers of the things that I want to see or the procedures that I want to follow. The sketching will keep you on the methodicness track and provide later support when you will want to articulate each of your disassembling steps and their justification. The needed sketch can serve as a tentative roadmap, specifying. You see, a roadmap is a projection, is a vision where I want to go. Remember, we spoke about the purpose statement that it is pointing at the end results. So now here, a strategy of data analysis is also along the same path, that I want to put a tentative roadmap for me. And there are these points under that roadmap. How you might initially attend to the more relevant parts of your data first, to see how disassembly works before attacking the rest of your data, and if so, what parts will serve as the starting point. You see what is happening here. Remember, I said you've got a background, you've got a history, and you've got your ideas. You've got to you understand the study, and you want to know, you know what you want to achieve. And based on that, then you should understand the data that is more important or the data that is more relevant. Then one of the decisions might be, let me start with the data which I see is relevant to the research question, which is answering a research question, or which is actually the data that actually is leading me to achieve the purpose of the study based on the purpose statement, your objectives, your research questions, all of those. So based on those, then I should be able to understand what is important, what is irrelevant and relevant. And then I start with those sections or parts of the data that is more relevant. That is by looking forward. The second aspect is how you might take an even smaller subpart of your data and pre-test a tentative disassembling procedure. And if so, what subparts will serve as the starting point? You see, even if you're starting with the relevant part, what part of the relevant data are you going to start with? Even here now, which small part of the data can I pre-test? And many of that one which is relevant, which small part is that? And what subparts of it will serve as the starting point? These are some of the questions that you ask yourself, and you take decisions on them so that actually they propel you forward. Decisions means that you're implementing them. The third aspect on looking forward is whether you intend to code your data or you want to code it, and if so, whether and how you might try to use some computer software to support the coding. It's yours. The choice is yours. I downplayed computer usage, but the choice depends on the researcher that can defend it. So are you going to code or are you not going to code? If you don't code. In coding, then you can read, you study a book that explains how coding happens. There are different authors who can explain coding in their own way. The one that resonates with you, then you can follow that one. If you can implement in the way that the guidelines are presented, then also decide whether to do the software or not, taking into account the risks associated with the use of computer, as well as the benefits associated with the use of a computer. The ball is in the court of the researcher or the student. You might even give a few codes a trial. If you are interested in coding, you can give it a trial run. Now, in making these choices, remember the tentative nature of the sketch. Here, it's a trial and error thing. It's testing to see what can work or not. So the different angles then can be pre-tested. And if you see that they work, then it means these are the correct roadmaps that you can follow and pursue, as long as they take you where you want to go. You may want to revisit your choices later to be sure that you haven't ignored data just because they did not seem relevant to you at the time. You see, when we study, remember, particularly with qualitative studies, which is inductive in nature, our understanding improve as we continue with the study, because we discover more things, particularly when you start engaging with your respondents and other people. Then you gather data that starts informing you your studies. So it might be that when you start coding, or in the middle of, when you start analyzing, or when you're in the middle of analysis, you actually prioritize some data, thinking that this is what is relevant to your studies. Just because at that time you can understand that one. But at a later stage, you find that, no, man, but my understanding has improved. And when you go back, that which you have ignored, you find it is equally important to what you thought was important. Or you find, no, actually, the route that you've taken was wrong. You drop what you have done before, and then you follow what the new understanding is. Remember, you would have prioritized some parts of there to start with. So that revisiting, that recursiveness, that reiterative process then assists you to revise. Go backwards, go and revise. Redo what you've done, make new choices, and make new decisions, and you move forward. Then there is this important aspect of making analytical memos. Expect the disassembling phase itself to contain iterative steps. You will continually go back and forth between your initial ideas about how to disassemble the data and the actual data, potentially leading to new conjecture about your initial ideas. Conjecture, new understanding, new things revealing itself, or becoming more evident. So that is what is going to face a researcher. Oh, this is what faces us every day. Just as I was preparing this workshop, I've studied other sources you have seen. They are true. If I resonate well with Yin, I go with him. But when I get stuck and I get a confusion, then I can go back and consult another source. Then I also use my intuition, my own experience, to actually revise what I see is not in order, so that I don't get lost somewhere in that analysis. You may not take any actions to deal with this conjecture or with other idle thoughts that occur during this assembling phase, or even that might have occurred during the compiling phase. However, to avoid losing these ideas, the thoughts should be recorded in the form of analytical memos, kept throughout your analysis. Good memos can preserve what at first appear to be half-baked ideas. You know what is important? We said as you continue, you develop a better a new understanding. That understanding is an improvement of your understanding. So in other words, you grow into your studies, you grow into your data analysis. And what they talk about here in analytical memo, that growth will only be realized and be seen if you are recording your experiences throughout the data analysis process. You just like when you're collecting data. When you're collecting data, you record everything. And even if you have recorded data, you see, another better thing that can assist you is to do memos, analytical memos, on the side of the data that you have collected. We have said in data collection, if you are using a recording device, it will only be able to take words. But what about the actions and the non-verbal communication that happens? You use analytical memos. To note that, oh, when respondents were responding on this aspect, on this date, then they were laughing, or they were sitting in an armchair, or they seemed uncomfortable, they were frowning, or they were gazing at you, they were in surprise. You see, the memos would remind you everything that has happened. So even in that analysis, if I've got a specific understanding, I need to note. If I see something surprising, I need to note. Something interesting, I need to note. And if I put even the date, when I go back, I'll find that, oh, On the 12th of August, my understanding was this. But when I went towards the end of the month, I noted that my thinking has already shifted. This is displayed by the memos that I was making in every step when I was analyzing my data. And I could see that my understanding developed progressively towards a different understanding. So when I start doing analysis, I've got a better grasp and have a better understanding of the data. Not that you want to go back. You can even revisit and change what you understand today to what you understood last week or the previous time. Because you will see later on, we'll show you that one way of analyzing data is to try and put it upside down, sideways, to try and rearrange the data that is the same, the data that differ, that is in a disagreement, trying to package it together to find out what the outcome will be. And that is data analysis. Nobody's going to teach you to do those things. Those things must be done by the researcher if the researcher wants to grow. And that is what education is all about. Not to be told by somebody, not to be led. You must discover on your own, explore and discover. That is why what we are doing today here is looking at some of the guidelines that Yin has provided. And on our own right, we will go and use it in the way that we see it makes sense. I will tell you, and I want to confess that I don't agree with everything that they write. And some of the things that I'm saying here, they did not write because they interpret their own way. When I find that I don't understand it, I deviate and I find a way of explaining it myself. And this is what should happen in data analysis. Even if we are told that coding is like this and that and that, if we find it doesn't work, we throw it away and we use our own analysis, using our own intuition, which is allowed in research. Those ideas later may become invaluable, and the memos will reduce the frustration of being unable to recall whether you already had considered and then rejected an earlier idea. You see, so perfectly matching, dovetailing thinking and dovetailing of the statements that are logically making sense to me. That the reason why I've got memos is that I can do things that I did previously, or I can throw them away, or they can build me to where I am. And I am this person who I am in my perception of research because I read some other documents before, I read some studies before, I've conducted some studies in the field, and that which is not applicable, and I will always challenge it, that this is not possible, this is not practical. Most researchers experienced at doing qualitative research, experienced at doing qualitative analysis would say that this analytical memo writing is imperative because, in the words of some of the researchers, whenever anything related to and significant about the coding or analysis of the data comes to your mind, stop whatever you are doing and write a memo about it immediately. And because I also sometimes travel by car, I even thought that while I'm driving a car, beautiful things about my plans, my future plans, or my work, or the things that I like, they come to mind. But I cannot write because I'm driving a car. Then I thought, no, maybe it is good for me to put up a tape recorder and recite those things so that I can record myself. So when I park my car or in the evening when I'm resting, then I play the tape recorder backwards. Then it reminds me of all the beautiful things that come out. The same applies when you are asleep. You start thinking about, oh, hey, I was tiling my house. No, I should have bought that beautiful one. I've left that one. Maybe I can match black and white. No, I need rough tiles. I don't need slippery ones, shiny ones, because I like rustic things, because I like things that are closer to the natural environment. How can I blend it? So I develop a brand for myself. That is what I think needs to be recorded. And your analytical memos help you in doing that. So I want to stop here. And if I've lost anybody, it would be the opportunity for them to jump on to come and ask questions.
My question is, I'm hearing what you're saying about the coding, but with your experience, which one is the best way to do the coding, manually or using this technology? Thank you.
Mpo, I've been, even from last week, I've been downplaying the use of software. I And maybe it is because am I a baby boom, or who, those people who were born before technology? What do you call them, Mpo? Are they baby booms? I am that
Did
old. Okay, so I I have read actually from Yin, the source that I've used here. Um, there are advantages of using the software, but the usage of software also requires someone to work hard, because it has got uh, some challenges. Remember, we are not all masters of the technology. Then if you want to use technology, you must learn how to use it. And when you want to use that technology, then you must invest more time on the use of technology, analyzing. And all of us are aware that when you've used technology, you must also finish up the work, because technology will not do everything for you. It would you do some of the basic stuff or some of the things that you can instruct them. Those people that have used it do understand it better, but it does not finish. So be prepared to actually work hard if you do that. But the other thing that what it does is that if it analyzes for you, then it is no longer Mpo or Konanani that is analyzing. It is that technology. It is a machine. And that machine, it will interpret data in the way that it interprets data for everyone. But if it was Konanani or Mpo is so unique and so different from Konanani. When they analyze data, their own right. They analyze it from their own perspectives, and in the way that they analyze, they understand data analysis. That on its own grows them, and it actually capacitates them to even master the approach and the process of analyzing data. Whether they do it deadly or they struggle or whatever, at the end of the day, when they finalize it, they have learned a lot, and they can be proud that they have themselves analyzed the data. And the other thing that I know, I've said last week, is that um, although, say for instance, if I don't know how to use the technology, NVivo or your Atlas, then I'm going to approach a specialist that analyzes data. And this always happens with quantitative researchers. You are statistical, you need a statistician or somebody who can use the technology for you. Then they analyze data and they give you analyzed data. In that way, sometimes it is difficult to avoid if you don't know statistics or if you cannot use the tool to analyze your quantitative data. But it is important to learn and try and master those things, which is also time consuming. So if they do it for you, these NVivos do it for qualitative data, it means they are going to do it for you. Somebody is doing it for you. It's not yourself who is doing it for you. So the data analysis, the results belongs partially to the NVivo or Atlas and partially to you. So you are jointly accountable for all the messes and all the mistakes. So, but I want to tell you that the most that I could do with the use of technology was to use a calculator when I did mixed methods research. And I could only calculate percentages. I want to know how many people have responded to yes or no, or people that have not said anything. And I found that at the end of it, even if I've got the percentage, I must interpret what the meaning of the percentage is, so that I make sense of my data, so I can own it. I'm not wanting the percentage. The calculator cannot speak for me. It will only tell me about the percentage. But what it means is what was behind the questioning. My question wanted to know how many people think that protected sacred areas assist in the conservation of the natural resources. So I say that the choice is the core ball is in the court of the researcher or the student. The choices are there, but you might think that it will be faster when you use a machine. It is not going to be faster. It will need time for you to actually continue to analyze alongside with the machine. Perspectives. Colleagues, I want to tell you this. Don't be afraid. Even if you are not in the field, you have not collected data. We are actually using this workshop to prepare you to analyze your data. And please do engage with this. And don't shy away and run away that saying that I have not yet collected, I cannot comment. You can comment, because these things are read. I have read. The last time that I collected data was in 2018. You see, to 2018 to date, it's more or less 7 years. So I'm also not in the field, but I'm just using common sense and what I've done, the experience. I'm like yourselves. Look, we're going to look at to code or not to code. Now, as a way forward, and then I want you to engage much with these slides that are following now. You can disassemble your data in many ways. Some ways are discussed here. Yes, I will then indicate which ways I think I know or what I understand to be what they mean here. If I've got examples, I will cite and show you. But you also can devise your own peculiar disassembling process because there is no fixed routine. So a person can use what she knows, what is better or flexible for him, and this person doesn't have to comply to anything. No rules. There's no, and the university is not going to ask you. Sometimes they wouldn't even see how you have analyzed, because in my case, I've never attached a spreadsheet or any other methodology or process that I've used in analyzing my data. They just saw that I've analyzed data and presented the results, interpreted them, and drew conclusions. So the ball is in my court as a student, as a researcher. There are various ways, including everyone's homegrown version. My grown version, the version that sits well with me, will nevertheless boil down to one critical choice: whether to code portions of the data, that is, by assigning new labels or codes to selected words, phrases, or other segments of text in a database or not. Supporters of the grounded theory approach to qualitative research have been at the forefront of describing how such coding might work. That is how people tell us what they believe coding is and how it works and how it should be done. So if I don't understand it, then I leave them and then I will use my own approach. However, deciding whether you should code or not is not quite an either or option. You can code your data for some topics in your study, but not others. And you can therefore use both approaches. You can code and you cannot code. It is dependent on you. Each choice is discussed in turn, and we're going to look at how we do data analysis with code, with the use of coding, and we do data analysis without coding. And let's start with coding now. In most qualitative research, the original text is in a set of field notes, and therefore in your database will consist of specific field actions and episodes, as well as specific opinions, explanations, and other meanings expressed by participants. It's not limited to what is written here. No, there might be a lot of things that constitute data. Some of your data is the artifacts that you collect in the field, your graphs, you have everything that we spoke about when we spoke about recording data. Is what your data would look like. So associated with this information will have been highly contextualized details such as the time of the day, the place, and the people involved, how they. You see, when people are responding to questions, they don't respond according to your wishes. So they will tell you things that are useful and things that are not useful. And they can tell you a story upside down or up, upside up or upside down, sideways or whatever. That is the way they will tell you. But your data will be like that. So each part of the fixed experience will therefore be unique. Yeah. The experience of your respondents or their experience per a specific theme or per a specific topic or per a specific date or event when responses were provided. These are all unique. In spite of this uniqueness, the purposes of trying to code this data is to begin moving methodically to a slightly higher conceptual level. And when you code, the reason is that one. You need to show a bottom thing and a top thing. They provide coding as something that looks like a tree or a pyramid. They describe it in their own way. And I'm going to try to talk about it and make reference to it. If you're happy with it, then that is coding to you. But if you're not happy, then decide what you understand by the meaning of coding. And I think you have read, I've got my own feeling what coding is, and I've used it, then it worked for me or it didn't work for me. But the studies, some of the studies that I've analyzed, I didn't even know that there is a word called coding, but I analyzed, and some reports were accepted. The codes will inevitably represent the meanings that you infer from the original data. You see, the code is a label, is a meaning. It's what you think you are hearing from the original data. It means that data means something to you. That is what they're telling us here. So when we do data analysis, we then label. When we label, we're coding, we're assigning meanings to the data. This higher conceptual level will enable you to gain insight into potentially important processes, as well as to sort the data for their similarities and dissimilarities. You know, in data analysis, something that has become quite interesting is to try and find things, statements that support each other and statements that oppose each other. Then you have to decide, how do you write a story out of the opposition? And how do you write a story out of the supporting, the complements that is there amongst various sections that support, that speak the same thing? Remember, if I'm going to Johannesburg, there are 4 to 5 toll gates that I'll pass. One of the toll gates is the Kranskop. And if somebody is asking me about the toll gates that I pass when I go to Joburg, I can start by telling him I pass Kranskop. I also passed Zepediela or the Nails Plaza. I also passed that. But these are not the beginning plazas. The beginning plaza, if I'm from Limpopo, is the Capricorn. You see? Someone, if they were to ask someone who is logical, who wants to explain a story logical, he will say, I start Capricorn, I come Zepediela, then I come to Kranskop, and so and on. You see? So in data analysis, you're not going to get everything logical. You are the one who need to package statements that are provided differently. So how do you take a statement that is at the tail end and mix it with a statement that is at the beginning or in the middle? How do you start in the middle but still find the tail or still find the head? That is what happens in data, because you might find that the statements, a respondent that has given you logic from the beginning is far and in the middle or somewhere at the end of the documents that you have transcribed. Or the people that you are starting with from the beginning of your data are starting in the middle or at the end. How do you deal with them? Do you want to throw them away? What is your logic of data analysis? So we're looking at similarities and differences. And these things must help me to construct a story so that I can present a research report that tells me how these things happen, how my journey has happened. The nature of the initial codes, which can be referred to as level 1 codes, are open codes, and they can vary. So these codes can stick closely to the original data, even reusing the exact words in the original data, sometimes referred to as in vivo, because it is inside the same data and it actually replicates, it uses the same words, the same statements or the same phrases that were used by the respondents to an interview. Wow. So that is what they call in vivo. And this is the very same level, the basic one, level 1. So it is at the bottom. As later on you would see the meaning, the difference between the data level 1 and level 5 or level 6. You would see they would make reference to a tree, and they will show you that at the very basic, the first ones, those that are close to the statements reported by the respondents are actually more practical, more realistic than the higher level ones. The higher level ones become abstract. The lower level ones are actually very substantive. It's very practical. As you progress in doing this first level of coding, you may start to understand how your data might relate to broader conceptual issues. Because this first level coding assists you to package that which is different and that is to separate that is which is different and to assemble and to package that which is the same. So in a way, you see, we told you that when you are in a specific phase of data analysis, don't think that you can only consider the first level. You can consider all the levels. This is the reason why when you start packaging the very basics and the at level 1, you already are seeing level 5 or you're already seeing level 4, because that basic data first level speaks to all levels because it is the building blocks. Level 5 was based on level 1, level 4 based on level 1, 3, 2, and all those things. You don't have level 5 if you don't have 1. And your 1 then should assist you to navigate throughout. So this is the reason why they say you might find that it also starts to relate to broader conceptual issues. And you will be able to see this when I cite an example. Some of the field experiences may in fact be sufficiently similar that you might think of their codes as belonging to a similar but even broader category, representing an even higher conceptual level. Your coding has been proceeded to a higher set of codes referred to as level 2 or category 2 codes. I'm going to demonstrate to you what I think coding is. And this is my own, in my own head. And this is what I still remember what I did. Is what I did when I was actually analyzing data. That aspect of packaging your data in a matrix or whatever, transcribing it, I did not do those. But what I know is that I had a bundle of handwritten notes, not transcribed by a machine, because I never recorded my data for transcription. Even where it was recorded, I had to use handwriting to transcribe. So in most cases, I had handwritten notes. You still remember when I was showing you extracts from my handwritten notes, when we spoke about notes taking, that they were written by hand. So that is how my data looked like. Now, I've just stolen some of the documents, some of the information from the documents that I have to show you what I would have done if I were to follow the coding that they are actually advising me to do. In other words, I'm mimicking as if I like coding or as if I'm doing coding. And I've got this paragraph, which is talking about animals as symbols of good or bad omens. And in between, you can see the red writing. And I want to refer you to those red writing. That this red writing, which talks about birds. In my far left, there is bird. And if you go to my far right, you've got reptile just at the bottom of this slide. But second row from the bottom, you see bird again on my far left. But if you move somewhere in between, there is reptile, there's mammal, and there is bird and the bird. And that is me giving names or labeling, giving a phrase. I'm labeling, I'm showing you what this bobo mean to me. To me, it means a bird. And to me, the tree agama, which is Agama atricolus, means a reptile. Because I'm a conservator, I know that this is one of the reptiles that climbs trees. And this is one of the birds that flies. And I've been watching birds using my binoculars, studying them while I was still in conservation. So, and I know what that a spotted hyena is a mammal in my head. So I labeled them as mammals, as reptiles, or as birds. So that when it's part of my analysis. When I start writing notes, then it means mammals belong to the same. Then when I discuss anything about mammals, I must find a discussion or a paragraph or a section that talks about mammals. And if there are, I start talking about the snakes, and I start talking about the the three agamas, then they should be falling in the same group or in the same discussion or section of discussions. And to me, what I'm doing here is coding. And what I must tell you is they made reference to the very to level 1 of coding, which is much pretty closer to the very same statements that were used by the respondents. So the respondents used bobo. I did not use a bobo. I used a bed, but it is closer to it because a bobo is a bed. But what would happen is, remember, when I write this bed, I'm writing on notes that I've written. And those notes were written for me by a respondent. And if I were to go and do a matrix, I could as well write bobo, or I can also write agama atricolus to show that this agama is a reptile. Indeed, I've written there is agama atricolus and there's bobo, and all this is a bird and this is a reptile. So it's closer to what they said. And I could even do it in a matrix. Let me try and see what I've done in a how is that matrix? No, I'll share it with you later on. But I want to move from here. And if you don't understand this, what I've done here, please just make a note on your writing pad so that we can come back and zoom on it again. Then you can ask me questions based on it, and I will tell you why I wrote bird and I wrote mammals. But later on, I've got a slide that indicates where this falls, this grouping is, and why this labeling has helped me when I moved forward. By the way, I might have not done it the exact way by that time, but here I'm trying to show you what in my mind I was doing, although I didn't follow, I didn't use the statement coding. Then I was coding in my own way. But let me show you the other way of how other people did it. This is according to Yin, and I think it's on page 198. If you know him, you can go and look. You will find this illustration. It shows in my far right, illustrative words from original feed notes. In other words, this is the agama, the tree agama, and this is the bobo, or this is the baboon, or the spotted hyena. It's in my far left. But in the middle row, here are the initial codes, level 1, where after somebody has listened or have read statements from the respondents, he assigns a meaning for the first time. That is referred to as level 1, which is close to the activity. So I think that, let me just read for you statement number 1 there. It says, Samantha brought homework home, but she did not always have the right assignment. So Yin thinks that this is equivalent to the oversight of the student, of Samantha, because Samantha missed to bring the correct assignment. She brought a wrong one. But later on, if Yin wanted to move further to a second category code or level 2 category or code, then he thinks that if Samantha has got an oversight on what she does, or she loses it, she does not remember it, or she does not take into cognizance of it, then it means there is a barrier for collaborating on homework. She fails. This is a barrier. Her oversight is interpreted as a barrier, but her lack of bringing homework, the correct homework, is interpreted as her oversight. So this is how systematically people think that they can code. You can interpret it in your own way, but this is what they are saying in accordance to me. If you still want us to revisit this, we will revisit if you want us to engage. I want to move on now to the next slide. Now, I've responded to you to some of the questions, half of the question that Mpo have asked. But Mpo, you need to decide whether you code or you don't. And this is what I said, the ball is in the court of the student or the researcher. Now, the author writes, at the same time, even if you try to practice the looking back and looking forward principle described earlier, you may still have trouble with the coding process. Because what do you code becomes a new barrier, and replacing where to start. Where to start, we saw it is a problem. But then even if you want to code, the barrier is, what do you want to code? Decisions you will have to make at this time will involve the detail of what is to be coded. For an example, whether to do line by line coding or whether you will make discretionary choices about the segments of text, words or phrases, or larger chunks of text to be coded. You will remember, if you look at my codes and my labels, I just wrote names of the animals. Sorry, I classified the animals. In other words, I either refer to it as a reptile or a mammal or a bird. To me, it means a lot in science, in natural science. We know what reptiles are. We know what birds are. We know what mammals are. There is a description. So it means we will classify everything that we've been told by the respondent under these as class or as categories or as levels of coding. You see? So I would not struggle what to code. I knew, or in my head, it was registered that, these different animals behave differently, or they bring different methods, different messages to us. So let me classify them as that. So when I describe, I can talk about mammals, or I can talk about birds, or I can talk about reptiles, and have a story that talks about the behavior or what the reptiles do to me. That is what data analysis is, but it is based on what you have coded. So I did know what to code. You can use phrases or words or anything, any key thing that will assist you to classify what you see as important messages that are coming from the respondents, so that you actually capture this real story from the respondent. We said that qualitative data is inductive, it is emergent. Then this is what you need to capture, as it is imaging and coming provided to you by your respondents. Similarly, you will have to decide on what is salient enough to be coded. What is it that I must code? What is salient? What makes sense? And what is it that is at the center of what I should code? For an example, repetitive segments. Do you want to code repetitive segments and say no, I concentrate on repetitive segments, or unusual segments that stack up, that surprise you, that appear to be new? Do you want those? Or segments where participants may have agreed or disagreed? You remember, we're talking about disagreement and agreement, that agreements will support each other, but disagreements negate and they fight. Then how do you make sense of the things where people are fighting? And that entails data analysis. When you make sense of the disagreement, that is what we want to see you coding. Or are you interested on those aspects that appear interesting? Oh, I'm interested on this, because this tells me the other side of the research story or the research question or the purpose statement. Oh, this one is actually in support. Oh, but it tells me I'm actually revealing new things and all those things. That is the decision that a researcher or a student should make. More substantively, the coded segments can represent processes, important aspects of principle of participants' everyday lives or practical concerns and conditions. I have there is somewhere where I think I read, it was this author who says you can sometimes represent processes logically in terms of time frames. You might find that if you're collecting data in longitudinal studies, you study people or the phenomenon under study for 5 years. You want to see what is happening at UNISA. Since 2023, when we had postgraduate academic literacy, what is happening there? Do most students actually volunteer to speak? Do they volunteer to share their documents? Or do they ask a lot of questions, or they are reserved? then we can track these things. Remember, we have got these recordings. Then I myself, with the university, go and study the recordings that we have had over the past 3 years. Then we establish a trend, and there is a pattern which can be referred to as a process. And what is imaging? Later on, there would be reference to patterns if we are like it today, but we can still do it on the other day. So you see, recording, your coding can code then processes. You can code important aspects of participants' everyday lives or practical concerns and conditions. That is what data would have provided you. So you're interested, you decide what you want to code. So important too is the grammatical form of the coded words. You can use the statements. You can use the words. Then they can also provide a pathway towards coding. Gerunds tend to help portray actions and processes. Gerunds, these are active or action words or statements that show that activities are taking place and processes. But whereas nouns turn actions into topics. And what you are doing here, you want to build, you want to have topics because your research has got a topic, your research project has got a topic, but it has got sub-themes or subtopics. Sections are topics on their own right, or they are subtopics. So those would come from noun. So noun can assist you to actually create the topics or the specific subsections. Or the gerunds themselves would indicate processes that need to be discussed. But again, you can turn a process into a topic so that you can explain that topic. And you can use the process to explain a topic, or a process or a topic then informs a process, even vice versa. It depends on the choice that the researcher or the student takes. And now I just want to show you how we can do a schematic diagram, and we're going to pause so that we can start pondering on what we've been presenting here since we had paused the previous time. Now, let's look at how we develop a diagram as a heuristic device. Heuristic is a temporary or a test device that we can use in terms of analyzing data. If you are still having trouble with these endeavors, one option is to develop a schematic diagram. And if you have got problems in trying what we have been saying, we've been presenting in the previous slides, then this is another way of actually analyzing your data. The diagram can extend all the way from disassembling, which is phase 2, to the concluding phase, which is phase 5 of the analytical cycle. You see? Now, but look, deassembling data is phase 2. But we are hearing here that it will then start from this level 2 and go to level 5, which is phase 5 of the conclusion. And this is the reason why we said you cannot say that because you are in phase 1, in phase 2, you only deal with phase 2. No. And what they did not even tell us here is that phase 2, when you are in it, you can actually find that, no, man, this data that I'm using was not well compiled. Let me go back and revise the stage, the first stage of compiling. Then you revise it. So that is reiteration. So it's an overemphasis. But the diagram itself can take you to all these stages, and I'll be able to show you. I've got an example here of a diagram. The diagram takes the form of a conceptual tree, and it does not involve any actual data code or coding. You get it? This is somehow where I don't understand him. But imagine the tree being upside down with the thinnest branches representing the most concrete concept. I forgot this concrete. I said substantive. But the most concrete concepts are represented by the branches that have been turned upside down, that they touch the ground to be used in the disassembling phase. And the trunk of the tree having the most abstract concept to be used in the concluding phase. You see, this is an analogy that they wanted to use. They want us to look at the tree that we've uprooted and we try to take its branches its flowers, put them down, but the roots face up there. The branches are somewhere in the middle, but the stem is up there, whereas the leaves or the fruits and the flowers come down where they normally don't. Because trees, most of them, grow upwards. Now, this analogy we want to look at, and this is what I want to present to you. Ladies and gentlemen, researchers, look at this diagram. And remember, do you remember my python and my tree agama? Do you remember my beds? Then I've made a schematic representation, diagrammatic representation for you, so that I can show you what that coding helped me to do. You remember? I said I wrote reptiles. Wherever I saw a python, I put reptiles. And wherever I saw a tree agama, I've put reptiles. Look, it has helped me to put a tree agama and a python in the first level of the yellowish. And then I took the label, which is the code. Look, reptiles. That is the first code that I did. But it was dependent on the statements from the respondents who told me about a tree agama and a python. Then I labeled them as reptiles. The same applies when I saw a baboon and spotted hyena. You will remember I said they are mammals. Remember? Then, to me, because all of them were labeled as mammals, it means they are clubbed together, they fall under a specific grouping. The same applies to birds. Look, the black-headed oriole and the red-crested cuckoos are all birds. Eventually, you find that my codes are at the first level of coding. They are, look, reptiles, first level, mammals, first level, birds of bad omen, also first level. But I was not happy with the thing, with that coding. I wanted to move a step further at a higher level because I was told that this hierarchy, this very same schematic diagram would move me from disassembling to level 5, which is a conclusion. So let me see what I did. When I move forward to a next level, the second level, then I move up. You see my mammals are under terrestrial animals of bad omen. My birds are also under the terrestrial as well as the reptiles. Now they no longer are separated, they are bundled together as terrestrial animals. It means themselves as terrestrial animals are in the same level as aquatic animals of bad omen. Okay, aquatic refers to water, animals that stay in the water, and terrestrial refers to animals that stay on land. But all of them are animals. So the investigation was to find out which ones have got bad omens or good omens. So I started looking at those that are in terrestrial environment. Then I left the aquatic, those that live in the water first, but I went to the land moving animals first. And when I move higher, you find that when I finish looking at the animals in the water and the animals on land, then I move to another category, conservation of animals. I find that, this is mainly about conservation, their protection. This is about animals, their protection, their conservation, their sustainability. So these aspects, all of what I was investigating, has to do with the conservation for animals. But remember that I said the natural environment also has other living. The living part of the environment is the plants. That is the reason why you've got plants that live on earth and plants that live in water, that are submerged in water or that flourish better in water. And if you include the two of them, they all are generally plants. And if you are dealing with them, investing there, how they are sustained and they are protected, we are looking at their conservation. But if I want to make a big argument, I said, I'm not looking at the non-living environment. I'm looking at the environment that is alive. It means animals and plants are all living. And if I'm looking at their conservation, we have got a broader terminology that refers to them as biodiversity. And their protection is conservation. So is the conservation of biodiversity. This is a simplistic way of looking at how you code from the first, second, third, and fourth level. And if I were to go beyond biodiversity, I can look at the biophysical environment. So I would have something about non-living environment on the side as green, with all its roots and all its legs, yellow, blue, and gray, and so whatever. So all of those would fall under the biophysical environment. Then it can be divided into the living environment, which is biodiversity, and then the non-living environment, which is the physical environment. So this is how in my head, I think in the past when I was analyzing my data, I had, and I succeeded to actually analyze the data, whether I was coding or not. But this schematic representation is actually exactly what they refer to as coding. And I interpreted it the way I'm saying it to you. If you've got a different interpretation, you're welcome. And if you are confused and you want to understand more, I'm going to pause now and I'm going to give you an opportunity to actually engage with me.
And I just love this schematic diagram. My first introduction to coding, and back then I was not aware that it's actually coding. So myself and a few colleagues, former colleagues, we were selected to go for a short program at Vets Business School, and because it was more gender reference, so it was just focusing on females and their role in the organization, and just try to find various projects where one can actually identify certain challenges that the company has with regards to women and leadership. So our group, we looked at the lack of women in higher ranking positions. So most of the time you'd find that there's either external recruitment, there's very minimal promotion, but still the majority of people that are in those senior positions would be males. So our group, then we decided, because it was I think a action learning project or something like that. So we had to do a mini project, and just to identify, so actually interview senior women leaders and a few other prominent, and just to try and establish what is their understanding of women in leadership, and the potential factors that they see or they feel could hinder the progress, and anything else worth mentioning. So I remember some of the responses was it's a bureaucratic atmosphere. So obviously women are more centered on having these subordinate subordinate roles, and
Are they coded there as level 1 or level 2?
I'm still coming there. I'm still coming. Yes.
I'm reading you, Nomse.
Not a problem, Dr. Karombi. So others, they would, various lamentations regarding that progress. So for us to actually assist in coding each and every question, so the questions were qualitative or subjective, and then at the end would say, if you had to summarize your answer in 1 to 2 words, can you please give us that 1 to 2 words? And that's where our coding started, because that actually gave us like a large how can I put this, quite a large number of phrases that these women were sharing with us. Others would say it's biased, it's sexist, it's this and this and this, and
that
then
is labeling. That is labeling.
yes. and then on top of that, what we did, then we started looking at what could be the root cause analysis and other factors. So then we started looking at, you know, the themes to say, okay, here, when it comes to bias and sexism and whatever, this is how we label it as a theme. And then obviously there were other themes as well. It's just that I can't remember. This was 2021, if not 2022. And then the subsequent step was we actually did an interrelation graph. And like, as I'm looking at your biodiversity conservation, well, I can't say it's similar, but you know, we'd have those themes like right at the bottom. Maybe, for example, lack of diversity, bureaucracy, and so forth. And then the next step would be various others, maybe lack of company support, lack of skills, lack of qualifications. And then we actually ended up creating an interrelation diagram that pointed out, you know, the relationship between all these factors. And just to break a little bit, our group actually got the first prize when it came to that. Yeah, but as I'm looking at this, that just brought back very sweet memories in terms of my first encounter with coding. Well, back then I didn't even know that it's called coding, and I mean, even when we were asking those questions, it was very you know, subjective. And at least now, a few years later, I know that we were doing actually qualitative research and, you know, making things easier for us by creating labels, actually asking them. So in terms of your answer, if you have to use one or two words to summarize, what would it be? So yeah, that is my story of sharing. But thank you so much. We truly appreciate this platform. We learn a lot from you. Or maybe let me speak for myself. I learn a lot from you, and I appreciate Ndoleboa.
Yeah, the question is just simple. I'm trying to find the difference between, I think, the schematic diagram as well as a thematic
coding.
Yes, I'm trying to distinguish between.
It's fine, and other people will say what they want. Let me be the first one to say it. And the schematic diagram is this full slide that has got yellow, that has got blue, and everything. It is something that is showing a scheme. It is actually a diagram which has got a lot of information in it. But the thematic coding, to me, I'll tell you what I think, because I've never used coding before. But remember, you have got topics. What did we say? I said something about topics here while I was talking. That yes, some of the nouns that are there are themselves what you can convert to be your topics. Whereas the gerunds, which are action words, are the ones that represent processes that are taking place, and they explain to you processes. Now, your nouns are what is equivalent to the to thematic coding. So when you are using them, you are coding using the themes. No, and you don't have to even do it the way the book tells you, because if you have got some information that is there and you have been told by people, you can develop a theme. You can give it a heading. That is a theme. You can give it a topic. That is a theme. So a topic to me, I'm talking about reptiles. My theme is animals that crawl. You see, it can be a theme. Or my theme can be reptilia or reptiles. It is a theme. It's a heading. And I've done it. I've put there birds, reptiles, mammals. Those are headings. So I'm putting themes, and those, because they're nouns, all of them are equivalent to themes. So that is how I was coding. I was coding, in other words, I was labeling by giving names. But you can label but you can then sometimes refer to processes. you know. And I don't know if you talk about processes, it will no longer be thematic. It will be thematic
It
because a
still
process,
be.
yeah, you will say a process of undertaking a journey. It is a theme. Hmm? Taking a journey to Gauteng, that is a theme that I'm going to talk about. So everything, every information that talks about how I would stop on the way, fill petrol, and then have a burger, juice, or go into the bathroom or whatever, it is a process that is being explained under a specific theme. So thematic coding, that is it is. And you know, colleagues, I will tell you something what books do. Books will use words or jargon. And I'm not interested on the words themselves. I'm interested on what the words contain. If we're talking about themes or thematic, whatever, we're talking about giving a name or a label. So the important thing, what will be inside there? So in the journey to Gauteng, you cannot talk about the medieval plaza. No, because it is not there. It's after you've passed Gauteng. You see, what is important is inside what has been bundled together. So similar things together, different things separated. That is coding. And that is data analysis. You finish it. You have nailed it. You don't have to be a professor in using the jargon that the author has used. No, you can use your own as Mpo, and Kononani will use it. I will even translate Shivenda into English. And that is what I do when I'm writing, by the way. I translate my Chivenda into English, and they've passed. And one of the senior supervisor even said, "Oh, what he likes about me is that I'm very, very original, because I did not follow what a book says. No, I followed what my head, and my heart tells me. Because to me, data is like this, but to the author, data is like that." And I told you, remember, Yin might be in Germany or in Czechoslovakia, where he sees a theme in his own way. Now I see a theme in Chivenda and in South Africa, in the Limpopo. Let's do that, and you will see that you will enjoy your studies. Is you are going to enjoy it. Don't be shy. Don't want to use the language that has been used by another person. And that is not being professional. Actually, it is that is plagiarism. But if you are original, use your own language, the way you see it, write it in your own style. Then we can see this book, you can see that it is imposed writing here. And that is originality. And most people that do this contribute to the body of knowledge, because what they do and their styles has never been there before.
Just one follow-up question to Mpo's question. So the thematic coding, is it the same as the mind map, or is it the same as the schematic diagram?
It is the same as the diagram. Do you remember in the can I let me move backwards and show you the mind map that I did by my hand? I presented it. I presented it last week, and I think it's one of the slides. Let me go to that one. You will see that it is a dream, and the way in which I organize things. Let me go back to it, and I can show you. You will see it's exactly like this schematic thing. Here it is. You see, this is what I was thinking myself, and I put this thing because it is not electronic. This thing came from my mind, and I liked it this way because before I had a computer, or even when I had a computer, I never thought that when I analyze, I should use a computer. But my mind map was always from my hands, and a lot of my things that I've done, they departed and they came from this. And that is how I analyze my data in the past.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. So you must enjoy it, and don't be shy. Whether you are seen, you know what I enjoy is that people can discover that this old man does not know things because he grew when computers were not there. Then I'm happy like that. You forced me to go and study. I expose myself to you. Then when you laugh at me, then you make me smart. That's why I'm not shy. So also not to be shy. Please do come on.
I would like to add my 2 cents worth, Dr. Korombi.
Yes.
Yes, especially in terms of what Paul mentioned, and I think the previous lady, my apologies, I didn't catch your name. So if I can make an example, Dr. Korombi, I think a few slides back, we could say he was busy with a literature review, going through, biodiversity conservations and identifying the various animals and what would be termed an animal that has a bad omen, and mammals that have bad omens and so forth. And that it's labeling, because already here he's creating text to say this type of animal, it's bad. This type of animal, it's a bad, but it's also associated with witchcraft and so forth. So already that it's your labeling, or coding. You are identifying certain themes. And then when it comes to the schematic diagram, it's almost like a one-page presentation of everything that he's talking about. So this slide, as it is, he's dissected it. He's labeled, based on what the villagers' responses were regarding whether it's a spotted hyena or it's an owl. And then the schematic diagram or diagrammet, it just that it depends on the terminology from scholars. So the other colorful one, he's made it in such a way that now it's summarizing everything. So let's put it as it's a shorthand of this. So a one-pager representing all those ideas. So if we had to be presenting, like doing a 2-minute presentation at conference, the schematic diagram will just say the whole story without running on and on. So the order would be, you start with your labeling, and then your coding and all of that, and then to represent it in an aesthetically present way, then you'd use a schematic diagram or anything else, interrelation diagram or anything like that. Trusting it's making sense now, in addition to what Dr. Korombi has mentioned.
Yes, very beautiful. And you are saying it is a summary, ne? It does not summarize only that page, because when I'm doing data analysis, I would have pages and pages, and they are not following each other logically. I'll find it in page 29, the other one in page 3, the other one in 15, 17, 18, all of them scattered. But I must label them so that I bring that story that they talk, so that I consolidate it to mean something. That story must say something about the reptiles when it comes from various pages, and then the story says something about the mammals or the birds or the terrestrial plants, all of it from different pages. So this schematic diagram is a whole lot of things.
It's telling all that story into this one picture.
Yes, beautiful.
Yes,
that's the thing. Yes, thank you very much, Nomhle, and thank you very much, Mpo, and Lucia for all those questions and inputs, because they make us discuss. And when you are talking now, you also educate me. You don't know how much understanding you are making. You are shedding light through these questions and these comments, and I appreciate that one. We can, at the end of when we want to wrap up our EAS program, we can revisit areas that were not very clear or that we still want to enjoy, and then go and piggyback on the things that you think I did not touch, but they are paramount important to some of the workshops. Then we can pick some, then deal with one for 15 minutes, the other one 15, the other one 15. And the good thing is they can build up to something, because they can speak to each other, and they ensure alignment in a specific project, because we can try and identify a project where we ensure alignment, ensure a revision. So if you don't mind, I'll try to do that, but I also want to see if you're interested in that, and that you can remind me.
Thank you, Dr. Korombi, as always, as usual. We appreciate you.
Thank you, and bye-bye. Good evening.